I have a lot of reading goals for 2022. So I'm really excited to be doing this video because I finally get to show you guys something that I have been using for the past 3 years. Technically 2 full years, and then I'm also using it this year. So I started using Google Sheets back in 2020 to track my reading. I have a lot of different things that I track on this sheet, and so far for the past couple of years it has definitely helped me figure out what kind of books that I like, what kind of books that I need to focus more on, and it's also helped me figure out which goals I have for each year. So I'm just gonna jump right in and show you all what I'm talking about, and I have it on my phone right here. So it's gonna look a little bit different than it usually does on my computer screen, but it's just easier for me to record it here on my phone. So as you can see, this is my 2022 reading sheet. I have quite a few different ones. I have obviously the format right here, so I can just use it from year to year. And then I have my 2022 reading. So as you can see, I've already started to fill out all of the books that I have read so far this year. I have read 12 different books, and they are all listed here. And the categories that I have are obviously number of books, title, month that I read it in, genre, star rating, format, race/ethnicity, and age grouping. So these are a lot of like the categories that I focus on the most, especially genre, format, race, ethnicity, and age grouping. And then all the way off to the side there are these pie charts, which I find to be the most helpful. I chose pie charts specifically because I think that they are a lot easier to look at than like a graph or something like that. They just make the information much more easily digestible for me personally, so I like to use pie charts. And so as you can see, here's the genre pie chart. It has like contemporary, nonfiction, classic, fantasy, and romance. Clearly, I've read a lot of romance this month. And obviously there's star rating, there is count of format, count of race, ethnicity, count of age grouping. This is the age grouping one is actually one that I just recently put in. I started doing it last year, kind of like a little bit of halfway through 2021. And I found it to be really helpful. So obviously I have read much more adult this year already than I have young adult. And then we can go over to the 2021 reading, which is actually complete, obviously. So all of the books that I read in 2021, I read 80 books. And then going up here, obviously same thing as the other one. And this is definitely a bit more of a complete pie chart, especially for genre. So as you can see, fantasy was my biggest genre last year, followed up closely by romance, and then contemporary, nonfiction was huge, and then I just have a bunch of other like smaller genres. So yeah, that's a little tour of the spreadsheet that I like to use in order to classify and organize the books that I read each year. I will say that if you don't want to do this yourself, I did this all on my own. I formatted all by myself. If you don't want to do that, if you're not like really into spreadsheets, I would definitely recommend using the Storygraph app because that basically does it for you. On their app, they actually are able to take all the books that you've read and do the same exact thing that I did on my own. And I find that to be really helpful too. I think that that's a really great service that they provide. And if Goodreads knew what was good for them, they would try to do that too, because it's so helpful, especially when you're trying to work towards a reading goal. I know that not every reader is going to be so hyper focused on like what genres they're reading, what age grouping they're reading from, you know, if they're reading super diversely or not. So this might not be super helpful for everybody, but it is definitely helpful for me. I love spreadsheets, which is totally weird because I'm not like a super organizational kind of person. But I do find that using a spreadsheet for like my reading or writing or whatever, it's actually really helpful. So yeah, I wanted to show you all my spreadsheet. I love it so much. I don't really know how to give it to other people, so I'm not gonna offer it unless somebody can tell me how to do that. But if you are interested, I can always help you out. You can always ask me any questions of how I did this, and I will totally let you know. And I mean, I would say that I would do a tutorial, but I don't really know how to record video onto like my computer. I have a really cheap computer. It was like $200, so it's not like a super high quality like MacBook or anything, so I don't really know how to do like fancy stuff on my computer. But if you are interested in doing something like this, I can definitely help you out. Now I want to talk about some of the goals that I have for my reading in 2022. It was funny, I kind of was thinking about it and I'm like, I don't know if I have a lot of goals for 2022. And then I started writing the list and it just snowballed. Like, I have so many goals for this year, and I feel like a lot of my goals tend to be repeated year after year. It's why I don't do like a yearly reading goals video, because I feel like it'd be super repetitive every year. But I really wanted to do it this year, especially since I wanted to show my spreadsheet that I've been working on, and I didn't want to do like a spreadsheet video back in 2020 because like I didn't know if it was going to be helpful. I didn't even know if I would use it all that often, but the fact that I've used it for 2 years in a row really means that it's definitely been working for me. So I think obviously one of my goals is going to be using my spreadsheet just as much as I have been for the past 2 years. I just find it to be really helpful. It's just such a great resource to have, and I like being able to see my list of books like that and see just like everything physically laid out for me. Another reading goal that I have for 2022 is to read at least 90 books. So this is kind of interesting. I have to go to Goodreads because I have to explain my reading goals for each year, because of course I have participated in the Goodreads reading challenge I think every single year that I've had Goodreads. So yeah, I joined Goodreads way back in 2011, 2012, and that reading challenge was set at 10 books. I read only 8 books that year. So, I mean, I feel like this is also going to be representative of my reading journey, because I feel like a lot of people who are really new to the book community have not been like setting reading goals for themselves for very long, have this misconception that everybody who's reading over 50 books a year has been doing it forever, and they're just like these magical beings that have this ability to read so many books, and they could never do that because it's just not possible. And that's so not true. It is absolutely false. Like, anybody can do it. Anybody, if they put their mind to it, can absolutely do it. It'll take a lot of work, it'll take a lot of dedication, it might take years, but it'll happen. 2013, my reading goal was 20 books. I read 17. 2014, my reading goal was 35, and I read 26 books. My reading goal in 2015 was 10. I only read 8, so not that great. That rhymed. 2016, my reading goal was 30 books, and I only read 5. I read 5 books when I was going to read 30 books. So for what, 5 years, I never finished a challenge. I never won a Goodreads reading challenge. I clearly struggled to read, you know, even like 10 books. It wasn't until 2017 when I put my reading goal at 50 books, and I decided that I was gonna read 50 books, and I did. So in 2017, I read 57 books, and I completely smashed my Goodreads goal. And once I proved to myself that I could read that many books, I decided, okay, I'm going to up the ante. Every year, I am going to read 10 more books than I did the previous year. So in 2018, I read 61 books. In 2019, I read 76 books. 2020 was a really difficult year, as we all know. So I only ended up reading 54 books. So I kind of had to almost restart my challenge. Not really, but like I had to restart that mentality. And then in 2021, last year, I read 80 books. So I really have been trying to go 10 books higher each time. And my goal is to, by next year, read 100 books in 1 year, obviously. So I just wanted to like show that as proof that even if you've spent years and years and years only reading like 5 to 10 books a year, That's not a failure. And if you want to read 50 plus books in a year, even if you've never done it before, you can totally do it if you set your mind to it. I know it's a little bit slightly off topic, but I did want to say that because I don't want to just be like, oh, I'm gonna read 90 books this year and not give any context to my reading journey and what that's looked like for me, because it's definitely not been easy. But it is doable. My next reading goal, obviously, is to read more queer books. That's definitely something that I want to work on. I can totally admit that I haven't been the best at prioritizing my queer books, especially on my physical TBR and just like in general. So I definitely want to read more queer books this year. So if you have any recommendations for any of the things that I want to read, please leave them down below in the comments. I am so open to any recommendations. My next goal is more nonfiction books, which I fell in love with nonfiction late last year. In December, I read so many nonfiction books. It blew me away. I was obsessed. I just had so much fun getting to discover more nonfiction, discover the kind of nonfiction that I like, and I'm just so excited to have so many more books on my TBR that are nonfiction. Another goal that I have is I want to read more translated works, and that is very important to me. I feel like I have, like, in the grand scheme of my reading, I have not read very many translated books. But it's definitely something I want to work on because I don't want to have like all of my reading coming from the US or just like English speaking countries in general. I want to really branch out and read books from other countries, especially ones where the predominant language isn't English. My next goal is to read more of the classics that I've been meaning to read, like Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice. I also have Frankenstein, I have Dracula. There are just so many classics that I have not been able to get to that I really want to get to this year. So I definitely want to prioritize classics. I feel like I've just been falling so behind in that area. And it's not that I don't even like classics. I do. I really enjoy them. Some of them are not my favorite. But I think it's because I was an English major, so I was so surrounded by classics that it felt weird to read them outside of class. But now that I'm not really going to school at the moment, I would love to read more classics and actually like prioritize the ones that I haven't read. Oh, I also need to read The Great Gatsby. It was never required reading for me, so I really need to get to that book. It's my parents' favorite book, so I feel a little bit like it's weird that I haven't read it yet. The next goal that I have is to read more from my physical TBR, and I kind of touched on that in one of my other videos where I talked about all the books that I want to read for my physical TBR. But I have so many books that I have bought over the years that I haven't gotten to. I have definitely prioritized books that I don't own over books that I do, and I really want to change that this year. So I'm really hoping that I will be able to get to the books that are on my physical TBR. I think it's really important for me to actually read the books that I own. My next reading goal is to just read more diversely in general. It's definitely something that's been on my mind lately. I really want to get better at, reading more from authors of color, reading more from queer authors, just reading more from marginalized authors in general. So that's another thing that I want a lot more recommendations on. Leave them down below in the comments. Why did I sound like Miley in that one TikTok sound that, let's check if I have some comments. Aw, that one. I think I said that wrong though. I don't think that's exactly what she says in that sound, but you know what I'm talking about.
Computer. Oh my gosh, I'm such a nerd. Let's see if I got any new comments. Aw, man.
My next reading goal is basically kind of the same as the last one. I want to read more books about disabled characters from disabled authors. Definitely high up on my priority list. It's something that I haven't really read a lot from in the past, and I need to rectify that. And then my last reading goal is I want to read more genres that are out of my comfort zone. So I'm talking about horror, sci-fi, thrillers, stuff like that. and like obviously classics are in there as well. I feel like those are all so outside of my comfort zone. I typically go for fantasy, romance, contemporary, historical fiction, historical fantasy, etc. So those are usually like my comfort zone. Like I really love those kind of books. I feel comfortable there. But when I go and read like a sci-fi or a horror or thriller, it's definitely not something that I'm used to, and I don't really know where to start within those genres to find the books that I'm going to really enjoy, so it's difficult for me to navigate through those genres. But I really do want to push myself to read things that I wouldn't typically read. I do have quite a few thriller books on my physical TBR, so hopefully I can like kill two birds with one stone, reading from my physical TBR and also reading some thriller books. I might have some horror on my shelves, but I'm not sure. So, and I definitely have some sci-fi as well. I have a lot of Star Wars books, and I just haven't read a lot of them in the past couple of years, so I definitely need to get back into those because I love Star Wars books. They're so much fun. It hasn't been a huge priority for me in the recent years, but yeah, definitely want to get to more genres that I just don't typically read. Alright, so those were all of my reading goals. I think I have a lot of really great ones. You know, like I said, these reading goals kind of follow me throughout the years, and I don't think that that's going to necessarily change. I don't know if I'm like ever going to perfect any of these reading goals, but I think it's really important for me personally as a reader. I really like having these goals, having these things that I want to do, and I just love getting to share my reading goals and my reading spreadsheet with you all. Let me know down below in the comments if you have any recommendations, if you have any questions on my spreadsheet. I would love to answer them. But if you don't have recommendations or questions, just leave down below in the comments a heart of any color. I love the heart emojis, they're so cute. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All of the links are going to be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.